Okay, so let's start. Some of you probably remember that yesterday I was allowed to come here to tell you one little thing. Before I started, I said this is only going to be 5 minutes, and I delivered. It was 5 minutes, sharp. So with that recently gained credibility on my side, let me tell you something before I start my talk, okay, to make things clear. This is not going to be 5 minutes only, okay? Sweet Tools of Mine, you know Guns N' Roses, that song from them. And the purpose of my talk is first of all to do F5 to refresh the slides. And apart from that, what I'll do is to try and convince you of how convenient it is for you to develop your own tools in the field of security. I will focus on offensive security because it is the one I really like, but it would apply to anything in security. I don't care whether you're doing something very technical, whether you're pen testers, or whether you're doing risk management. Policies are applicable everywhere in security. But this is not the first time I do this, okay? I've done it more than once, but in a more private environment. It is the first or second time that I do this in an event like this, and I know what to expect from you. Oh, this is so hard. This is so difficult. Why should I do this since there are other people doing it, or it doesn't pay off? So, with that in mind, before I even start with the introduction, I'll ask a question. Okay, it's just a rhetoric. It's just rhetoric. What would that tool be? That tool for offensive security that everyone thinks is impossible. If you thought about developing your own tool, what sort of tool would it be that would make you think, I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the time, I don't have the skills? Well, in the field where I work, the response or the answer is usually this one. IDA-Pro. The tool by itself is not that offensive, but we all know what we use it for. So let me lead by example, and then I'll try to give you a nice lecture. Let's see how it goes with the video. Beware, guys. This is where sound comes in. I guess I have to go here. Right. It took me much longer to put together this video than the slides and than any other thing. Okay, here it goes. Carry on my wayward son. This is not for humans. Only Pancake can use it. Introduction to reversing. It doesn't have a user interface. Customizable. Bear with me for a second. Here, right. This is a project that I started alone some 1.5 years ago as a gift to Pancake. I always thought that Pancake deserved more than just criticism because of the extraordinary work he has been doing for the last 15 years. So when I finally told him, I said, this is your gift, do whatever you want with it. You can sell it, you can release it, you can do whatever. So Pancake decided to release this. and we are releasing it at root.con. Well, the idea was to release it in root.con, but I've had a hangover, so it will be next weekend. When I'm back home, when I have the time, we'll upload it to GitHub, okay? A user interface for Radare, cross-platform, in an alpha version. Okay, there will be packs, as you can imagine. But we certainly hope you feel willing to lend a hand. Let's hope that next year we can release version 2.0 and that it becomes a nice competitor to the commercial versions. Right. Hugo, what's the name? The project is called, everyone loves the logo, everyone hates the name. It's called EITO. I know, I'm horrible for names. I have a little problem. Unless I put a name to a project, I never finish it. So I'm never good at putting names. In the prototype, the name was Boken. A Boken is something they use in Japan. Then you have the katana, which is a sword. And Iaito is a katana that doesn't have an edge or a sharp edge. If you don't like the name, you can name it whatever way you want, okay? But the logo is cool, yeah? The logo is really cool. I would like it to have a bit more refined because you can see the pixels, but anyway. So, why should you try and put together your own tools? And I'm not talking about tools like this one, like the one I mentioned before. Unless Roman gives me time, I will not have minutes for that. We have this vampire hunter. What would you do if you had to fell a tree? Well, give me 6 hours to fell a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the edge of my axe. If the tool is developed by yourselves, you will know it much better than if you download it from GitHub or from other less advisable places. Okay? And then for offensive security, for real offensive security, my advice is never use public tools. Okay? You may and you must use libraries. Bearing in mind that within any one tool, it might be in a volatile way, but there's potential libraries. I'm sure you can take part of the code of a tool you like and convert it into a library. Why? Why my recommendation not to use public tools if you want to do offensive security? Several reasons for that. If you use a public tool, you will be conducting a public attack or a vulnerability known to the public. That is not offensive security. It might be pen testing, but it's boring, okay? The second rule of the code is do never get caught. If the tool is public, you will know about it, and the person being attacked will know the tool as well. And that usually doesn't have a happy ending. And then, in my circle, most of my friends are extraordinary bug hunters. They love exploits. And I've realized that for them, the world rotates around exploits and vulnerabilities. They take the most difficult program they can find, search for vulnerabilities and bugs, and they say, wow. From my point of view, exploits are a means to an end. A very important element, but just an element within a more complex system, a much more complex system. If you take a 0-day, okay, that only you know in a really secure platform, you burn it to go somewhere, and the next thing you do is what you can imagine. You're going to get caught, and they're going to laugh in your face. And I laugh if I find out. I mean, you have to think beyond the exploits themselves. This is not just about putting the first foot in the right direction towards the target. You need to do other things, and for that you need other tools. We'll talk about that in a minute. Another thing that we mentioned already the other day, depending on the environment where you're working, if finally you get to that project where the target is completely new and it's exciting, it's thrilling, tools will be useless unless you modify them. That is other reason. There's many other reasons why you shouldn't conduct public attacks using public tools. And then, leading by example, what I'll do from now on is to show you a number of tools that I have developed as a proof of concept. You cannot use them in production for real offensive security, but they could teach you a few things. You can learn, you can motivate yourselves. So instead of throwing them at you, a bunch of tools, I'll give you a sequence, okay, on how to find the exploit, on how you use it, but I have a little problem. I have to let the code speak on my behalf. If I speak too much, I'll run out of time. So I don't want to explain things in a very abstract way. If anyone is really interested, they might look at the code. And since I cannot talk about every single tool out there, I myself based everything I did on work done by this guy. This guy came here, he told everyone about his tools, rootkits and things. Well, I've used his work. Thank you very much, Jaime, for your contribution. So you know what I've done for my work. So let's start. Tool number 1. This is from the world of fuzzing. One of the first steps recently to find vulnerabilities. The first step to go into an exploit, and so on and so forth. What happened in the world of fuzzing recently? That we had AFL coming, mighty AFL. And suddenly everyone forgot about the rest. We only have AFL now. That's it. We don't need anything else with AFL. Well, I am not an expert in fuzzing, but let someone talk about this, someone who knows a lot. Josian, our favorite Spaniard. The only reason why he says he doesn't use AFL, I don't use it either, is very simple. Everybody is using it. And I say something obvious. If you use the same fuzzer, you will find the same bug. And then, this is a valid point. The developer of this program works for a company, and they use that, he uses that for certain objectives. Do you have the computing power in your room? Jaime, you cannot say that. Do you have Google's computing power in your room? I don't have it. Results are bound to be different. And by the way, if it wasn't clear enough, if you go for a new fuzzer, you will have new vulnerabilities. Otherwise, you'll find the same ones that others have found before you. So what did I do? I don't want to do an entire program, put together an entire program, but I need a different fuzzer. So I paid attention, and when Josian's released Nightmare, I took a look at it. I realized that Nightmare is not a fuzzer as such. It is a framework. It is an environment to do fuzzing, which is divided into different, comprised of different components. Most of them are very useful. I'm not touching them, but the others, clients and mutation engines and fuzzers themselves, I'm interested in, right? So let's take a look. Clients. These are the debugging interfaces for the operating system where you will be doing your fuzzing. GDB could be the most obvious example. Then you have the mutators, which are the ones taking a sample and generate a large number of modifications to see if we can break the target. And then you have the fuzzer itself. I hope I finish this section soon because I don't know how to pronounce it. It takes those mutated samples and uses them against the target program to see if it breaks it. The client detects it, and so on and so forth. Okay? Based on this, I took Nightmare, I cloned it, I looked at the code and improved it. What did I do? I improved the UI, basically because I had pain in my eyes with what Josian offered, and because I love using it on my mobile phone. I used a Bootstrap library to make it more handy so I can check it on the go on my mobile phone. Regarding debugging, I was crazy enough to use Frida. We'll talk about Frida in a minute. We'll see what it is. I ported it and I improved it so that I could use it as a debugging engine instead of GDB and Radare and other crazy things in Python. It supports many platforms, it's quick, it's relatively simple. And then notifications, because it's so handy that you're just walking around and you get an alert telling you you've got a new bug. Wow, 1,000 euros for me. So that's what I modified. Anyway, I focused on this, and I used a nightmare for something I showed the other day. Why should we invest 3 months in doing something that is amazingly powerful when you can achieve something similar or even better results with slight modifications? What did I do? Well, I created my fuzzers, my dumb-ass fuzzers. They're good, they're ugly, they're quick, but they're very easy to put together, to build. And they're as effective as other things that may be much more complex. So I am going to release part of this daymare. I'm not going to release fuzzers because I'm selfish, but I will release some of the sections here. So my advice, fuzzers, as simple as possible, 4 lines of Python code, and that's it. Next tool down the line. Once again, a question for you. Please raise your hand if you have ever developed your own malware. Not with PowerShell? A bit better. Roman, what the fuck are we doing? Sorry about the swear words. This is 29A, yeah? The birthplace. How about programming your own malware for next year? Let me give you an answer. We've invited Grigio and he never says yes. I'm not saying no, but where do we have the Grigios, the junior Grigios? Well, the next tool is about this. It's got many names. It's called RAT, it's called Implant, it's called APT, whatever name they use for it. From my point of view, this is just the second stage in the payload. Part of that complex system that will do something for you. So what do we have out there? We have famous innuendo, completely overrated. We have Meterpreter, which is also overrated by many people. Everyone knows about it. Please raise your hand if you don't know that there's a courtesy string within Meterpreter to do a number of things that can help you. Who doesn't know that? Can I use this with Meterpreter? Well, if you want to say hello, I'm here. And then we have Puppy. No logo, but I use this logo for it. Which is a good tool. It's a good tool as an example. In fact, I had to talk about something else. I would recommend that you take a look as a reference tool, Puppy. The one I'm presenting here, which I find rather striking, I need a good name. This one is called Nemes. It's basically Frida. Those of you that know about Frida are probably wondering, what the hell is he talking about? It's like using GDB to exploit a system. Well, yes, let's say it's Frida. And then I'll tell you what came to my mind. Frida, in a very short nutshell, is a debugger that you inject into memory, an in-memory DBG, to analyze closed processes. It is cross-platform for any platform you can think of, like Radare. It's got bindings for Python, Node, .NET, QML, Swift, anything you can think of, like Radare, and it's got a number of operation modes. You can inject it into a process, you can embed it into your own process, or you can have it preloaded as rootkits in Unix. This is a summary of the main functionalities of a very complex program. Okay, am I the only one that sees this? Am I the only one? This? Because what if we take Frida, we make it thinner, okay, with several JavaScript engines. We write a number of basic functionalities for post-exploitation, moving around the system, collecting information, and allowing yourself to jump. Creating bindings in Python for new functionalities. What do you have? You have a RAT, or an implant, or an APT, your own virtual machine in memory, without touching the hard drive, doing everything you need. It gives you everything you need. Take a look at the platforms it can operate. And then compare it with Meterpreter. And take a look at the number of platforms available for this one. with something as simple as taking Frida, making it thinner, and modifying it slightly, you have your own APT, implant, whatever you want to call it, to start playing around. Not that difficult, is it? You inject the agent, the payload, then you download the second stage, which is the virtual machine, and there you go. Sending scripts. It's like Metapta. You got the functionalities, your plugins in JavaScript, and then you use Python to communicate with our engine without touching your memory. For different platforms, different types of injection, right out of the box. So this is Nemes. The next tool down the line, one more, has a name as well, Nevermore. Don't ask me why, but that's the name. This is a little bit complicated to explain in a few slides. So if anyone is really interested, take a look at the code. This is about creating your own personal VM. We're not talking about VMware or VirtualBox or anything like that, okay? We're talking about creating your own CPU, your own language, and your own compiler, more or less. What do you get out of that? Well, you're hiding the code, you're hiding the functionalities, you convert this into a nightmare for anyone trying to do reverse engineering. You can do self-modifying code. You can make every single instance of that malware to use a completely different virtual machine. So if someone gets hold of one, analyzes what it does, when they get their hands on the second one, they have to start from scratch. Of course, you will get new friends in the community. And I'll use 3 slides to give you a high-level perspective of Nevermore. Whoever knows about this, well, this is my own view of the tool. You have a program in x86. You apply a virtualization process and convert it into something else, into a language with your own CPU, a CPU that you have invented yourself and that you have defined yourself. So you end up with the same binary, okay, with a pseudo assembler that you have made up, okay. You might have generated it on the fly during virtualization with a small virtual machine that will be executing and translating in real time all that code to that x86. This is a bit of a lie. If you go inside, it's a assembler on x86. But yeah, I'm talking at a very high level. So what you end up with is a pseudocode that will be executed by a virtual machine to do whatever you want. Of course, it has an impact on performance and other things. Let me take a look at what I'm going to release. Let's start with the source code for the program. The next thing is you pass that code to a compiler, which will use a set of instructions defined by yourself to generate that pseudocode. That pseudocode, together with the virtual machine, will go to that, will be part of that binary, or it could be the entire binary, so that that part is hidden. Someone will have to spend quite a few weeks or months to find out what it is. Okay, I'm giving you a very, very basic description. There's chats out there that can give you an explanation of all of this. This one I really like, the next tool. This is called Shroud. It is a crazy idea that came to my mind when I was playing around with virtual machines, and the funny thing is that it works. This has to do with the exfiltration of data. Once you get to a system, once you know that you have found the data, and you have to extract that data, how do you do it usually? HTTPS, DNS, ICMP, documents, steganography, social media, Twitter, whatever. And about the media, about the means you use, well, you use the victim's network, you go into a process for the browser, or you create your own Wi-Fi, and you use that Wi-Fi network to extract the data. What I thought of was this: an implant in memory. Once it has injected in the victim, it has SDR capacities to, it gives SDR capacities to the victim. And you use that SDR, okay, to create your own protocol on your own wireless network to get out. And I'm not talking about a wireless or a Bluetooth. Literally, you create your own protocol, your own frequency. You can make it as complex as you like. Your own exfiltration or leakage channel. And reverse engineering, you can imagine, is hell. As a proof of concept, I use a virtual machine from Lua as a second stage for the payload, or not. You may decide to do it otherwise. And I install it as I installed something called Lua Radio. Okay, I found it browsing the internet. It does exactly that. It is like a GNU radio, but done with Lua. Wonderful. It can be executed on top of a virtual machine from Lua, or it can be executed as a precompiled library. If you don't use a virtual machine from Lua, you have one from Python. You can still do your own bindings for the Lua radio and use it with Python if you like to do that. So the good thing about Lua is that it's cross-platform, really cross-platform. So we choose our target from that list. We launch the exploit, we execute it. We have a first stage in the payload. And now we inject a Lua VM. Once we have the Lua VM, in the first stage we upload a plugin, as we would do with Metapta, which is Lua Radio. At that point in time, using the SDR, which we have just injected, we create our own exfiltration channel, whichever one we like, and start sending commands or extracting data, wirelessly using our own protocol or reusing something we know. This idea, just like this, has a little mistake, has a little flaw, which is hardware dependency. I mentioned this to a colleague at work, okay? A guy at work that is an absolute nerd, and he's so good. And then we went for a few beers. Well, this guy was wondering. He didn't tell me. His question was, what if? What if we didn't have to rely on the hardware? What if we could do this without physically connecting anything? So the guy, he's Finnish. He said, this would be big. Well, that's what the guy did. After 10 minutes, I'm having a beer in Helsinki. The guy comes with a laptop and a radio unit. Take the radio, he says. He goes away a few steps. He executes the Lua virtual machine, and he starts getting data on the radio. There was nothing connected in the laptop, not even a wire. He is so good. He made the tool much better. And this part, I can tell you, we're not releasing. Okay? If anyone was wondering. Remember, all of this will be available next weekend in our GitHub because I didn't have the time to do it this weekend.
Ya lo sé, te estaba...
Right. Thank you very much. Right.
So I'm relatively new in the world of hardware, okay? I need to tell you about that. As we get into this section, you'll realize that I'm a newbie, okay? But no one had the guts to come here and talk about this. I'm the first speaker. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll be more than happy to take note of whatever you have to say. Reasons why I decided to go into hardware. Sometimes your location matters. An example, if you have to hack someone, they have a sniper rifle, and for some reason it is not protected in a Wi-Fi network, and you have 30 meters as a range, you'd better not be seen because he's got a rifle and he could shoot you.
And what type of person are you trying to hack? So it's better that that person doesn't see you. Of course, you don't want to wear your laptop and the battery and jump after him. No, you just don't want to do that. Because before, well, as same as before, discretion is just mandatory, compulsory. Same as what happens in my case, because I'm in the world of aircraft, etc. And last, because sometimes in some cases the objective is just different. Of course, you will be there with your laptop and you will not be able to connect to anywhere. You will not be able to talk to anyone. And then this is specialized hardware, very expensive. If your company pays for it, okay. But if you are doing it at your own initiative, perhaps you don't have enough budget. Well, but as far as I heard, RootedCon is delighted to sponsor very many types of research. And now, hacking tokens. What are hacking tokens for me? Because I just made that up. So these are devices with a single objective, that is to say, compromising a target. That's it. No more than that. And it's a combination of software and hardware. So hardware is also specific for these hacking tones. And what are the requirements? May have little unknown fingerprint and discrete and autonomous. We just don't want them to have lots of wiring. They have to be just autonomous. And the way they operate is as follows. So you configure the device. You use a laptop for it, a smartphone, a server, or sometimes the actual device. You deploy it with your target, either physically or remotely. Then that device, after compromising the target, calls back home, and then the upgrade cycle starts. So not much of a difference. And in the beginning, I just made this prototype, MK1. I wanted it to be cheap. The idea was to remove or to reduce it. I had a Raspberry Pi, which I got the Raspberry Pi #1, which is the simple one, and I started to do testing to carry out a number of tests. However, we wanted it to be simpler than that, with no finger trips. So this is the size of the palm of my hands. It is as small as a credit card, and this is as much as I need it. Okay, it has a battery, meaning that it is autonomous. It has LEDs and switches, so therefore you can interact with the device, and the device interacts with you. You can configure several things, and then it also has Wi-Fi, RJ45, micro USB, and a USB. And that's it. This is as much as I need. However, this was proof of concept, not a prototype, and as I say, discrete enough, small enough, and it looks harmless. But this is not what I wanted. It was just one more step. Therefore, we moved to MK3. The concept here, or the requirements, was for it to be modular, both in hardware and in software, stackable, so that you have very many modules. You use them as you need them. I wanted it to be small, low profile, and specialized, both for hardware and software. And I just wanted to use C, SAM, or MicroPython. And for that prototype, out of convenience, I decided to use the Feather range, made up of small plates with microcontrollers that meet these requirements. We have a number of boards. Some of them have Wi-Fi, others Bluetooth, others USB. They operate at 900-433 megahertz, and then micro SD and GSM cells. And we can add different features to these boards. So therefore, you just can add functionalities through different wings. And this allows you to have the specific hardware that you need. As you can see, they are very small in size, and they can be fed with the battery. So they are as small as this, and they are good enough to carry out attacks. Then there are also alternatives to it. You have US Barmery, VO Core 2, NanoPi, Neo. However, there are differences here. These are not microcontrollers, but microprocessors. Here we could install software. So for instance, in US Barmery, which is a board the same size of USB, has an ARM processor, Linux, SDK, And then the the MK3, the one that I wanted to use, has microcontrollers. And we also have the option to use FPGAs. I have this one. I got it in a training course. And talking about FPGA would be the topic of a different presentation. And once when I tried to understand what FPGAs are about, having myself reached the conclusion that we could define it and say that they are the same as hardware for, it's a hardware similar to SDR2 communication. That is to say, you program with logic doors instead of with Python. And then we reach MK4. I would have never have thought of MK4 up until I read this. And this is the typical statement, so simple, that you said, why this didn't cross my mind? If you really want to be serious about software, you should make your own hardware. And then I thought about Apple, and I said, okay, let us do our iTokens in an Apple format. Why is that? Well, Apple, for a long time now, have been saying that the products are much better and 3 times more expensive than others because they have their own software and hardware. That's a wonderful marketing tool, but they also have a point. The moment you decide to design your hardware tool, and when you know that you can also design the hardware, the platform to run it, the options are tremendous. And I decided to design my hardware from scratch. That's what I'm doing right now, and I would like to share my experience with you. But I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in this topic. So the phases I went through, first of all, studying, second, designing, then I'm doing a prototype, and then the fourth stage is mystery. So in terms of studying, there are many resources out there. These are some of them on the screen, places you can go to, videos you can watch. For instance, in Hackaday, you can ask people about any questions that you may have. Every day there are lots and lots of open source projects. And then, of course, those knowledgeable friends. I have friends, they know a lot, and I ask them as many questions as I have up until they are ready, when they end up being fed up of me. There comes a time that you get tired of reading and you say, okay, now I want to test. There are many programs for that, and this has to do with your personal preference and your budget. So the program that I choose to analyze hardware, I choose the program depending on the format of it, depending on whether I am analyzing the program of a third party. So if I have a Agatha-free board, I use Eagle for testing. But I think starting off with Eagle is the easy thing to do, but eventually the idea is to end up doing KiCad so that you can benefit more from it. It is harder, but you start with the graphical interface, and later on you move on to KiCad. So you either study your own design or someone else's design. So the source is open, it is available to you, therefore you study it. There comes a point that you want to make your own prototype, you print your PCB, this thing, you see, we only have this board and all the components are missing. You have to weld them and you have to assemble it, you have to set it up. Some companies do not only print this for you, but they also offer you the service to assemble the components for you. Well, I recommend that you learn to weld. You will end up doing it. So I will be asking Javi to do the welding for me. He's very good at welding, even if he's got like big fingers. He also plays the guitar well, and I'm not in that phase yet. I know that if I do welding, I would end up burning my home. That would be very expensive in the end. And now the last part, the fourth part, It's about, oh shit, I have to go back to square one. You will fail, and you know. And with this, the hardware section is over. And now, well, the doc is saying, is it true? Is he going to finish on time? Will there be time for questions and answers? No, obviously no. You may have realized that I mentioned 5 tools in the beginning of my presentation, but I haven't reached to the 5th tool. The 5th tool has not been discussed yet. And then the 6th tool is the software part. It's the software that I have designed for prototypes 3 and 4 of my hardware. It was stackable, it worked with microcontrollers, etc. And the name of that tool is VEC. VEC is MicroPython. It has been made in MicroPython. For those of you who don't know, is Python 3 converted to or taken to microcontrollers, and then VEC is a Metasploit that I have developed for microcontrollers. So we need the software to control it. How does it work? So basically, you have a smartphone or any other device with which you have a complete interface, and you use your smartphone to program your device. Some of the wings that we saw before allow you to add buttons and screens, etc. But if you don't do that, it is very difficult to interact with them. Therefore, you need to use third-party devices, in this case a smartphone, to do the configuration of your software, hardware. Once you have it, and say, I want this in this device. And for a reason that I share with you later on, that is sent out to a server. That server may be the laptop or the actual smartphone or any other thing. The package will be prepared and will be sent back to the phone, and it will be deployed, it will be installed on the device. So therefore, it is already controlled. It is already controlled, and then you can control the type of payload that will be executed. Remember that that device is there just for compromising. Once the compromise has been made, it kind of gets rid or out of the game. VEC has 2 small problems here. Because it's based on MicroPython, and because it is being used on top of microcontrollers, our memory is small, and we are also limited in terms of speed. That's the reason why they are microprocessors. So how do we tackle the memory issue? For that, we use frozen modules. And that's the reason why we need to take that intermediate step to configure our device. In MicroPython, you may use a type of modules. You either use the typical script that you put it in the right path and you import it and you use it, or before compilation, you can add the relevant scripts and libraries in the right directory. By the time MicroPython will make the compilation, it will include those modules by default in a frozen manner. And what is the advantage of it? They take up much less memory. So therefore, that's what I did. I took the basic functionalities, and not that basic functionality. I created modules for them, and depending on the device that I will be using and the type of device attack that I will be making, I may include one or some of them or others. Do I need Wi-Fi? Yes. Therefore, I include the Wi-Fi module. So therefore, every time you have to look into what you want to. So you are changing things as you need them. Not everything is done through frozen modules, but sometimes when you set up a new device or when you want to change your attack significantly, you need to rearrange these frozen modules. And then the other issue that we had was that of speed. So in that case, it means that the microcontroller is not what you need. Therefore, you switch to FPGA or to a microprocessor. So I couldn't bring all the devices with me, otherwise they would not allow me to go through security. And then this is the board that I used to test this. It has Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, SD card, has battery virtually everything. Therefore, take it out, and this will be the final device. This size, quite discrete. This is the development board that I use for my testing. Yes, I'm finishing. Yes, we will have time for questions and answers, I promise. This one here, this is the RM board that I use it for testing. And to see how far you can get with it, this is the automatic pilot of a drone. Has been made in Arduino. It has GPS, initial sensors, temperature sensors, battery, SD card, storage, and also a very small factor. And then if we use a different shell, we can weaponize it, and it could become a very easy tool. That's the concept behind hacking tokens. Instead of hacking Internet of the Things because it is trendy, why don't you use IoT to hack other things and not only using botnet? Please, let us be more creative. That will also be available at GitHub next week. And even if they don't believe me, organizers do not believe me, this is the end of my presentation. So in the meantime, I'd like to propose something to you. Promise that the name you will give to it is Duck. It is an improvement to what you are doing. Well, if fluoric acid or hydrochloride with a relay on the board so that you activate it on remotely so that the acid destroys the device. But you can also use electricity for that. Am I wrong? Self-destruction mechanism for the device? Yes. Actually, the device, well, you take this thing here, you take it out. Same as the photograph that I showed you before. It has the same, the format is USB, could be like a wearable bracelet. It's small, you take it with you. It is programmed already. It only has 1 or 2 buttons to it. It has been reprogrammed. You just have to come close to the victim if you need to come close to him and to compromise the victim. And then you see the result. That's about it. You could have done it with a smartphone, yes, but what would be the fun of it? So if I come here and say, oh, I've used Android to hack whatever. No, that's not good fun. So please raise your hand, those of you who want to see a demo of Aito for a couple of minutes or not. All right, no one believes me, and you believe that this is an animated GIF, what I showed you. Well, actually, I prevented myself from using Radare for 3 weeks so that this does not fail. Okay, here you choose the binary that you want, and these are the recent projects. So what it says here, creates Radare allows you to create binary, and I'm here in the part of creating your own binary. You save it as a binary because I'm testing it. I'm not going to open it. So for each project, you have the path, the date of creation, the size, and the initials, well, just to make it look nicer. So this is the part where you configure the analysis. How many people has asked Pancake how to analyze the binary? I show you how you do that in Python. I analyze it little, more, less and less, no analysis, more analysis, more analysis, analyzed. There you go. And then for those who are more daring, I have hidden these parts about the architectures. You just disable that, you just ignore it, and that's it. Let us see if we can upload our interface. We ask it to analyze the binary. Well, good resolution here. Well, I guess that the resolution is so good because we are at the cinema theater. So we have all these panels that you can move and configure as you want, left, right, up, down. We only need to have, well, you have this fixed panel at the bottom. You cannot change that. And then the line of command is the fixed line of command that shows there. So here the first thing that we have is the dashboard, basic information of the binary. And we have this visual statistics of what's been found in the binary analysis, the number of symbols, imports, functions, strings. So this gives you a quick overview as about the analysis, and so that you can see whether you need to restart because Radare is not analyzing enough. So you have this graph, you can see the different sizes, comments, etc. So something that I worked on before is that I wanted it to be user-friendly for the keyboard. So this bar here is navigation bar. Oh, it is not working? Oh, right. Yes, it is working. So I will typing right. Well, it works. You just type in right, and then you go to binary. So then it goes to write function. But if instead of doing that, you just write down a colon, then you get different commands. For instance, you may block the command, no more buttons, you cannot move things, you cannot close anything. So therefore, you will not be breaking anything by accident. And we also have this bar with these functions. Well, this is the first version. All right, memory view. Well, more complicated than I thought. This is divided in 3 parts. On the left, we have the ordinary disassembly. And on the right, we have alternative ways of visualizing our data. And the last part, this tells you information about the function you are on. These are the data of the function. You can view them in 2 ways, through different graphs. This is the offset where you are, and these are the cross references for the binary. We can hide this if we want. This is a graph view parallel to the disassembly of the function where you are. At a glance, you can see what the function is about. This is much better coordinated with this if we ask it to separate it, to separate the disassembly for us, so that we can better identify the blocks where we are. The list of compilation is a bit arrogant, so this is pseudocode. So we have now the pseudocode of the function where we are, so that it becomes easier to understand. We have the preview here, which is my alternative to the hateful pop-ups of IDA. Perhaps they thought that it was a good idea, but I just don't like them at all. So if you go to a call or jump or any other instruction referring to any other part of the binary in a fully interactive manner, you will get this, which is the function that is being called or the part of the code that is being called. As I said, you get that in an interactive manner. You don't need to jump all the time, and there is no pop-up. So graph view, and then the view of the disassembler. x86, 32 bits, and then we select these bytes, and I hope that you can see it. Yes, I'm finishing. Oh, sorry, you cannot see the tool because, well, Doug doesn't want me to continue showing this to you. It also has some notes, interactive, not blocks. And, well, this is all from me. That's Yato. It will be available on GitHub in a week. Well, I've just noticed that it's been me who has gave time to you. So one question. We have time for only one question. Yes, I have a job. I give an average of 40 talks per year. I have hobbies. I'm trying how to learn to play the guitar. I have a beautiful girlfriend sitting here. I visit my family. I watch lots of series. Yes, I have a life. And, well, it's a miracle that I have the time to do all this and to come over here and to show it to you. Oh, you said one question. So I have a question about SDR. Well, perhaps it's me who did not follow you. Where do you have the antenna? You said that you can program frequencies, and that's the Bluetooth or Wi-Fi attacks are made because you take advantage of the hardware. I just didn't get the thing about the antenna. Well, yes, all the attacks require an antenna. That was the problem. You needed to connect, you need to plug it in. But a friend of mine from work, I'm not going to tell you how he did it. Well, he managed to do that without an antenna. Don't ask me how he did it. I see it working. Well, Israelis did that in 17 papers with a NIFIM banner, and then that was an evolution, flip-flops, generating resonance, etc. So you can also change the positions of the bits in the ramp for emanation. Well, the problem is not emanation, is you controlling the frequency in an easy manner. Yes, you can induce it on the board, you can issue in different frequencies, we know that, but SDR, and what is the frequency spectrum where a laptop may resonate? I'm sure that you can predict that. Actually, I didn't do it. Yeah, he's right. The person in the audience is right. I don't know how this man does it. I see it working. I don't know how he does it. Yes, I'm saying that he's right. All right, thank you very much, Hugo.